Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today I am doing a Sephora haul video. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I really want to get this video up and out before the sale is over, which is the 11th. My first real order just got here on the 5th, so I spent the whole evening swatching stuff and putting makeup on, and this is actually my second face of makeup today, so I really feel like I'm trying to put this stuff through its paces so I have some first impressions to share with you. What I plan on doing is prioritizing this order since this has the most desirable items in it, the newest stuff. And then the second order, I'll make another video about that, but I'm not as worried because I don't really think there's lack of information about the rest of the stuff I bought. But because a lot of this stuff is new, I thought I'd throw my 2 cents out there. It's good to remember a couple things about when things sell out. Number one, you don't have to buy them at Sephora. I know Sephora at Kohl's doesn't have the biggest inventory, but they get overlooked a lot. So often they'll have stuff in stock when Sephora doesn't. And sometimes even if they don't online, they do in store. So I know I've had some luck in the past buying things that way. Also, the brand websites, like a lot of times they'll have at least 15%, some kind of code, or even, whether it's signing up for text messages or them frankly just competing with the Sephora sale. A lot of times you won't necessarily get 20%, but you'll get 15, which is pretty good. Another thing to keep in mind is if they do what they did the last several years, there will be another 20% off day in the future. And by that time, some things might come back in stock. So I don't remember exactly when that happened last year, but I feel like it was pretty close to the end of the sale. The first time it happened, people were pissed because, anybody who didn't have 20% settled for 10 or 15% when if they just waited, they could have gotten 20% off. So after the backlash from that, I kind of thought they were going to do away with it, but then it kept happening. So I do expect they're going to do that again this year. So keep an eye out for that sometime after the sale, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, somewhere in that time frame. So real quick before I get too far in, I want to mention the last video I made, I was trying the Prada foundation, which on one hand, that was a great sample because it was little pouches. It wasn't like the foil packs. So I really feel like I got to really try the foundation. I could have worn it 2, maybe even 3 times, but I had a bad reaction. So in that video, I definitely gave it an unfavorable review for dry, sensitive skin, but I actually ended up having to wash it off. I probably only had it on for a couple hours, and somehow within that time, I developed like 2 new cystic acne spots on my chin, which, I guess that could be a coincidence, but regardless, it was really drying me out in a way that just made my skin feel really stripped. So it's not in its best condition today, so I am testing the Dior stick foundation, so I'm trying to not judge it too harshly based on the fact that I know my skin is at its like absolute worst right now. So if I look extra dusty, I don't think that's necessarily a fault of any of the products here. But if you do have really dry skin and you are interested in the Prada foundation, I would say you could probably skip it. I mean, I have exceptionally dry skin. I don't have like the normal amount of dry skin, but between the alcohol denaturant and the sunscreen, the American sunscreens that I'm often sensitive to, it was a disaster. Like it was not good. So I'm happy to report that I will not be trying that one again. But anyway, I guess I should start by saying that I have dry, sensitive, over 40 skin and fine lines, wrinkles. I don't have any Botox right now, so my concealer is getting no help. And my skin tone is light medium, mostly neutral, very slightly leaning cool. So if that's helpful for anybody else looking for a shade match, I wish that I could sit here and tell you a foundation that is the perfect shade for me, but I actually have a really hard time finding that. I will say, when I tried the Patrick Ta foundation in 10 Neutral, that seemed to be a really good color match. I did not like that foundation, unfortunately, but I did like the shade. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but I tend to really be a solid light medium, neutral in most things. All right, so I'm gonna pop my order on the screen. This is what I'm going to be talking about today, and I am going to start with the only thing in this box that I think was a fail. So that would be the Patrick Ta eye duos. Now, I've gone on about this at length already. I sort of knew that I made a mistake before I even got them, but now that I have it in my hands and I put it literally side by side to my Pat McGrath, I pulled out my Mothership 2, the pinky gold shade all the way on the right. It was like a dead ringer. And then I swatched them side by side. They looked very similar. But then I put them on my eyes, and I can honestly tell you the differences were imperceivable. Like, if I had to say, I guess the Patrick Ta was a little bit lighter gold that was sort of leaning chartreuse, a little bit greeny gold almost, but lighter. The Pat McGrath was a more traditional gold. It doesn't matter though, because you really couldn't see any of those differences when they're actually on the eye. And at the end of the day, I don't love that tone on me. It's not something that I think is incredibly flattering, so it was just a mistake across the board. I knew that I didn't want any of the other ones, frankly, so if I was gonna try one, this was the right one for me to try. It didn't rise to the occasion. You know, when I bought these, it was before I saw any real swatches, so I'm sort of letting myself off the hook because I really didn't have much to go on. I thought the swatches on the Sephora website were not very clear. They looked really dusty, actually. They were not very flattering swatches. And then the ones manipulated by the light, like I couldn't trust those. So I knew I had to buy one immediately because I knew they were going to sell out. So I just did it. And yeah, I don't think I need this. I don't think it's bad. I mean, I think there is definitely an audience for this. I just don't think that audience is people who have a lot of eyeshadow. Because if you have motherships, for example, this ain't nothing new. I have it on today. I think my eye look is pretty, but I really can't say that I think it's special, so I am probably going to return it. Also, the white shade is like totally negligible. I have it on today. I used it in my inner corner, and I feel like it just disappears into nothing. It's like very unremarkable. So it's really only the pink shade that's worth anything. All right, moving on to better decisions. The Huda Beauty palette. I love this. This is officially my favorite Huda palette. It's the eye look I had on earlier today, and I think it's stunning. I think earlier today I kind of went overboard. I wanted to try too many of the shimmers, and I put them all on my eye at the same time. I don't think that's the most flattering that this palette can be, but I do think there's a ton of potential here. I'm not a fan of the pressed glitter, but luckily there's only one, so it's really not that big of a deal. I like all the other shades. I will say, if you have a lot of eyeshadow, you do not need this. There is nothing new about this color story. I could definitely dupe this palette with the collection that I have. Probably just with my Huda palettes, I could dupe this. So I don't think this is unique. I think the value in this is if you are looking for these colors, if you feel like these are your colors and you'll get a lot of use because they're all in one place, then I think it's a good purchase. I think if you have a ton of shadows and you're looking to spend less money and save your money for more unique color stories, you can skip this. The formula is nice, but it is by no means better than like Natasha Denona. You know, if you look at this and you think it's too similar to I Need a Nude, I'd say that formula is even better than this. So you don't need this. I will never stand here and say that anybody like needs a color story this bland, but if you're somebody that is into cooler tones and you see this as something that would be a good daily use, easygoing, everyday type of palette, I do not think you would be disappointed. I have only used it once, but it performs like my other Huda palettes, and it's fantastic. I really like the colors. The last thing I got for eyes was the Kulfi Zari eyes. I got Sona Sona. I was nervous about this because I have pot shadows that are like super similar, like champagne shimmer is kind of my thing. So I have a bunch of these, but I wanted to try this formula. And I'm happy to say, even though I only had it on my eyes for a little bit, I could tell I liked the formula. It didn't dry my eyes out. It wasn't scratchy or creasy or difficult to use, which frankly, that's why I don't use any of the other ones that I have. That and the other ones that I have are not as impactful as this. This is quite shimmery and really pretty. So I'm happy that I have that. Then I'm going to talk about complexion. So I picked up the Merit Great Skin Priming Moisturizer. I basically picked this up because it did not have phenoxyethanol in it, which I don't know if I'm allergic to it, but I have a reaction. My skin gets hot and red and it burns. So a lot of brands these days use that as their preservative. So basically anytime somebody comes out with a hydrating primer and it doesn't have that, I'm on board to try it. I've put this on my face 3 times now, I believe, and I like it. I like the finish that it leaves. My skin's not sensitive to it. I think as long as it's in a thin layer, it plays well with everything that I've used it with so far. The first time I used it, I used too much. I definitely put way too much on my face, and as it dried down, it pilled on itself. So I don't think you can like go ham with this. But if you use it like a normal person, I think it's fine, and so far I like it. I doubt that I'm going to totally fall in love with it to the point where this is my new primer forever. Like, I doubt that's going to happen just because, you know, I'm comparing it to my Bobbi Brown face base and I don't really like it more than that, but I'm certainly going to use it up. So that was a good purchase for me. The only thing I don't love about it is the smell. It definitely has that more than fragrance-free smell. Like a lot of clean beauty brands these days, I feel like some of their stuff smells a little bit rotten, kind of like it's already gone bad, and it definitely has that. So I'm going to want to use it quickly. I certainly don't think it's bad. It's just, it's not a smell I love. Like, I don't want fragrance in my skincare especially. I certainly don't want essential oils in my skincare. But, you know, I guess I would prefer if they could mask it. I would definitely prefer that because it's just not my favorite. I mean, the smell goes away as soon as it sinks in. But, you know, if I'm being nitpicky, I would point that out. Real quick, picked up another Nars Light Reflecting Foundation. This is my Holy Grail foundation. I have like countless reviews because this has been top spot for a very long time. The only thing I'm really testing here is the shade. I have Patagonia and I've had this shade before, but I'm definitely going to need to buy a second one. I always buy 2 and mix and somehow Frankenstein a shade that way. I was hoping that like by some miracle I wouldn't need to do that again, but I definitely do because I think Patagonia is a little bit too dark and a little bit too yellowy or something. I don't know. There's something off. So I'm definitely going to get a mixer. Then probably the biggest thing that I was looking forward to test was the Dior Stick Foundation. So I don't traditionally get along with stick foundations. I bought the Tom Ford because everybody said it was so great for dry skin. I did not feel like it was good for my dry skin. Somehow it managed to cling to my dry spots and also look greasy. So it looks okay at first and then it like separates and yeah, it makes me look dry and greasy at the same time. It's kind of impressive in that sense, but I certainly didn't like it. So trying that and trying several other sticks just over the years, I'd never found one that I really liked. So I was skeptical. When I first saw this and people said it was good for dry skin, I was like, it may be good for your dry skin, but is it really going to work for my level of dry skin? And I'm happy to report that it does. It is like what I expected, and after several hours around my mouth, I will see some dryness. But the upside is I don't need to powder it, so that's one less step in my routine. It's a good thing if I'm traveling. Stick foundations in general are nice for traveling. It's nowhere near in the running for top spot like my Nars Light Reflecting or my Chanel No. 1, which are both my Holy Grail foundations. It's nowhere near those, but it's definitely my favorite stick foundation, and it could be in line for number 3. I'm not totally sure because I feel like my top foundations are here, and then under that is like a big gap. Like there's not like a close third, but I do think this is good enough to keep. Obviously, I need to try it a lot more, and I need to try it when my skin is doing better to really have a good idea of how I feel. But I will absolutely be updating that in a few weeks. And if you have desert dry skin and you've been looking at this, definitely stay tuned for that. Next up, I have the Hourglass Liquid Blush. I got this in shade Scene. This is nice. I mean, I think my expectations were too high. I think I've been looking at this for so long and I've been holding out for the sale to pick it up. And I guess I was expecting something magical to happen when I put this on my face, and it's just okay. It's like, it's a nice liquid blush, but I would say even just using it twice, I can say for sure that it's not better than my other liquid blushes. Like, it's nice. It's a nice color. I'm glad that I got to try it, but I don't know that I would buy it again. I have to be honest. I don't know. I mean, I'll be interested to see how I feel about it in a few weeks because at least right now I'm sort of like, it's blush. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but I think my expectations were way too high. And then finally, I got the Westman Atelier Blush Trio. This came with shades Petal, Pop It, and Mimi. I knew that I wanted this because I've been wanting to try Mimi for a long time, and I think that used to be exclusive to the website. They don't have minis of that at Sephora. Honestly, if they did, I would have just picked up Petal and Mimi in minis and called it a day. I did not need Pop It. You know, that shade kind of scares me. That being said, I did try it briefly and sheared out. It was fine. I mean, it's wearable. It's something that I could definitely pull off used correctly. That being said, how often will I actually want to do that? I doubt very, but I'll try it at least once or twice. So it won't be a total waste. But Petal is beautiful. I knew that that was a good shade for me. I have used that before. I don't have it in my collection right now, but I've tried it. So I knew that I liked Petal. Definitely think Mimi's great. So I will update in the future with cheek swatches of all three of these shades, but for now you can at least see the shades. And I stand by the formula. It's just easygoing. It's not too hydrating. It's not drying. It's not slippy. It doesn't fade too quickly. It doesn't go on too pigmented. It's not patchy. It doesn't disturb things under it. It's just like a really solid cream blush formula. And I guess really quick, I can throw in, I got a YSL Quad. I bought this as a gift. I've got this one in shade 300. I have personally tried 300 and 100. So that's Babylon Rose and Stora Dolls. They're beautiful. The palettes themselves are very lightweight, so they don't make like the most impressive gifts in that sense, but the color stories are so easygoing. Like, I am somebody who I can't be bothered with like Tom Ford quads. I don't think they're special. I've used them and I'm not impressed. So I am hard pressed to spend money on luxury eyeshadows. I think luxury brands do great base makeup, but I really don't care for their eyeshadows most of the time. These, on the other hand, are gorgeous. They have, at least in those two shades, they have really ethereal toppers similar to the Makeup by Mario etherealized toppers. The difference is this formula is infinitely better. Not only are the mattes better, but the shimmers themselves perform better. I feel like when I had Stora Dolls and I compared it to my Etherealized, the first palette, the shimmers were like so similar. The difference was I could put the YSL Quad on my eyes easily. I didn't have to fight with it. There was less fallout. It was more impactful. It was just all around a better palette. So while I still think it's ridiculous to spend this much money for eyeshadow, I think if you're looking for something easy or if you have to give a gift, these are just like chef's kiss in terms of being both easy and impactful. I don't currently have them in my collection because when it really came down to it, I had too many other things that were similar, but I think for people that have like normal amounts of makeup, they would be super great. Okay, so that's really everything, and I have one more order on the way. I think that's coming on Friday, maybe? I think that's what the tracking said. So I went over that order in my last video. It's like eyeshadow and bronzer, stuff that has been out for well over a year. So I don't think people are like waiting with bated breath to see reviews of that stuff. You know, I think there's plenty of people that have reviews of those things already. So this was the one that was way more urgent. So I hope this doesn't come across as messy, but I'm going to try to push it out as quickly as I can. And like I said, expect a more full review in a couple weeks when I go over everything that I bought in the sale. I'll have a lot more to say about each of these products then. But in the meantime, this was definitely a success, and I hope it was helpful. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are. I love you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.